Hello everyone, this is Charlotte. Another adventure. And it's a stormy weather, this should be fun. This is a podcast called Chatting in Cars. It's where I discuss random topics as I drive to work, or back from work, or running errands, or on a whim sometimes. I'm thinking about starting a different type of setup. I've got to figure it out. Plus I want to do some other stuff, so there's always a project in the works. It's a bit dark in here, isn't it? It's alright, the sun's coming out. Ready? Wait for it. There we go. Right, there's a disclaimer at the start of this podcast because I do talk about a lot of topics and a lot of them sort of run into tangents and they intersect and there's all kinds of mashing up and mashing over and in between and enmeshment. So if you want me to stick to one topic, given my age, it probably won't happen. And I do talk in cycles as well, so you won't like that either, probably. I've listened to my grandparents talking, so you know. 20-somethings are like, you said that already. Why are you saying it again? Because I'm old. I'm trying to remember shit. Come on. I swear a lot as well. I've always sworn, really. I mean, except when I'm a kid and around my mum, because she used to wash her mouth out with soap and stuff. So I'm probably not going to stop doing it anytime soon. I'm gonna have to say sorry as well because I still partially have the flu, so I'm hoping you don't hear me snuffling, snorting, coughing, but I might. The topic for today is, I literally just looked at it, control. Control. Do you ever walk into a room and then you with a purpose and then you get there and you're like, what the fuck did I come in here for? That's my life. I'm worried that it's dementia or something, you know. It's like early onset or something. Like, I know there's a reason why I came in here. I know there's a reason I looked at my organizer. Fucking tragic. Plus I got a headache because of this storm, so or the flu. Could be anything. Not enough caffeine. Too much caffeine. Alright, so looking at control. If you want to look at it in theoretical terms, control is only allowed or enabled when people allow it, if that makes sense. Control is an illusion as far as I'm concerned. That's a bit existentialist. But someone can only have control over you so much as you allow them to. And that operates in a lot of different, sort of theoretical paradigms and things like that. It's only the energy that you give to these aspects that you find value in. So if you find yourself to be controlled, maybe consciously or subconsciously, you're actually valuing being controlled. That's a bit of a mind fuck. It's like, wait a minute, it's not a paradox. Yes, and you inflicted it. Shit. So yeah, maybe. I don't know, maybe you got like a sub-dom thing going on with your counterparts. I don't know. Ugh, weird. What if it's like a really gross old dude that's your boss? Why do I like this? Am I doing it for money? Oh my god, that sounds horrible. Anyway, yeah, so control is an illusion. You only are controlled so much as you allow someone to control you. It's only a game so long as it has participants, isn't it? It's only a game so long as someone follows the rules. What you need to understand if you're feeling controlled is what are the rules. Maybe you misread them. Maybe there are subconscious rules that you're not seeing that someone else is following but exploiting because they know there are extra rules. But you're only picking up on the surface rules. And that's what's fucking you up long term. It's like, wait a minute. There's a whole expansive universe to this game. Why am I not understanding it more? Because they didn't let you in on that information. Now, if you want to go into Foucault, we can absolutely do that today. What is it? Knowledge is power and truth is power. He's a good guy. He's nuts. Well, he was nuts. I think he's actually passed through now. But he was a very interesting theorist where he used to talk about mechanisms of control in terms of the knowing of information and gathering understanding, and you only had certain access at different points because you only know this because it's at your pay grade, sort of thing. That's on a need to know basis shit, and so you don't hold power because you've not got access to that particular set of truths. I mean, bearing in mind from an interpreter's viewpoint, truth is relative. It's whatever you interpret it to be. You go into narrative inquiry, everybody's got their own set of truths and things. So I do wonder how we came together as this kind of conglomerate of truths to participate in a game that no one really knows what the rules are. So, because this is a weird fucking paradox that we're in, dude. What's going on? Whose rules are we following? No one's. That's why it's all chaos. Hence chaos theory. What? The fuck? Meanwhile, have an ice cream because we're all upset. What? And some people's ice creams are alcohol, and some people's ice creams are, you know, Xanax. It's weird. I know, this is the Hayoko and me not taking shit seriously. I love the bigger scale of things. We laugh because people get so caught up in the seriousness of the situation that they don't look at the foibles of it. It's like, are you actually looking at this on a grander scale, or are you just looking at the here and now feeling like a victim? You feel controlled. It's like, look on the outside. Look at everything. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that we've even constructed this to exist. And yet we complain that it exists because we've allowed someone to take our power away, and here we are. You got a fetish for being controlled. I don't know. So what is this? It's silly. I don't mean that in any way on a sinister level where you should lead some kind of weird social uprising or anything. I mean, we all saw what happened at Capitol Hill. That was fucking retarded. Just understand the humor of the universe. People taking themselves so seriously, and they're so up their own ass as well. It's funny. I love it. And she has the best sense of humor too. She will take you down a notch for being an arrogant fuck. But it's fun. But control is an illusion. It is. Oh, we must be hitting into some kind of cloud. So my head's gone funny. Pressure. I don't know. It's like you should all. We all have to play in order to get the game going, essentially. And maybe what our motives are is monetary, or is social acceptance, or is to feel like we've got some kind of a worth in this situation. Maybe it's a low self-esteem, maybe it's a tradition. We have to do it because our forebears did it. I mean, anyone who's in a generational cycle scenario, most of us are, I think, at this point, because we keep encouraging change. Anything that is encouraging change is cycle breaking to an extent. I'm hoping it's positive change, because the negative change is really getting up my ass lately. I'm going, I hate this shit, but it gets up everyone's ass. So that's the things that we need to address as well. It's like contrast. You need to see the shit in order to appreciate the good. So intergenerational breakers. A lot of that is observing the control mechanisms that drove our social psyche for eons, and then saying, does it still work? Is it relevant? And what context should we be using this in? Are we supposed to be using it at all? In that way, we can dissect that certain rules and regulations we've been following for maybe centuries are, abstract concepts that we can get rid of. Like slavery, for example. It's a prime candidate for examining why we should never go back to something. Even though it still mildly exists in certain areas, you get people trafficking and stuff like that still. But the overall joining in and going someplace and taking people and using them as slaves generally is bad. We all acknowledge that now, in this sort of, particularly in first world country kind of mindset. It's like, that's really bad. We've got the luxury of being able to examine that from our standpoint. Third world countries, they sort of go, yeah, it's bad, but we got other problems to look at. It's like, where are we going to get food? And we're being flooded right now. There are specific country examples that, can look at the idea of control, but have different priorities, probably more important priorities than we do. We've got the luxury of being able to consider abstract concepts on that level. It's a bit bulgy. I would say, and I know I'm going on a tangent now, if you are more in a third world country, you might have better skill set. Like, I'm a functionalist at this point. I value what they've got over rather than what we've got over. Anyway, I digress. Okay, what was I talking about? Intergenerational. My stutter's kicking in already. It's alright. It's Thursday. I'm meant to be a low energy day. Intergenerational curses is where we examine the locus of control. be it abstract concepts such as traditions or social behaviors, or, you know, just generally telling you who you should be, just in the foreground of your existence. That's when we start examining what's actually relevant and should be occurring. And I think everyone is going to at least face one intergenerational curse and to have to decide for themselves whether they're going to break that or carry it on. Because change is inevitable. It does come, whether you want it or not. I'm not going into that. I got a dirty mind there. Like an overly excited boyfriend. Whether you want it or not. I just think that's flattering. But anyway, no, that's different. We're not going there. Or are we? But you know, it's gonna happen. You can't get upset about it. People will resist change and become controlling themselves in order to stop shit happening. In some ways, resisting change is good because we know that there is negative change. We also know that there is positive change. So if we can see that there is a good thing, and of course this is all reflective of the current social norms and values. So we don't even really know in a more enlarged, abstract way what is meant to be happening because we don't see the grander picture of things. But this is just what's sort of reflected in the themes that we're currently surrounded by. So if you look around and a bunch of people are saying women need better rights, then we might progress to better rights. If someone turns around and says everybody needs to wear yellow socks, and if you don't, we're going to cut your foot off, people might go, okay, so yellow socks might be the way forward, but I would wonder why we're cutting off legs. It's a boiling pot of thoughts, essentially. When control comes into it, there is usually a motive. The motive needs to be ethical. We find in consumer societies that the motive tends to be monetary based. With money comes power. Only if we allow it, but with money comes power. Before money became such a large component of our community or our society, it was things like belief systems, where they started combining church and state. You would have state, which would manage the financial 3D aspects, but then you'd have church guiding it through spiritual. I say church, it's a very westernized view of looking at it, but it was supposedly guiding through moral aspects, which were based on biblical, if you want to go through a particular like British monarchy and state kind of viewpoint. It was based on the values and things that were found in the Bible or through Christianity, which should have been reflected in the outer society, which would have led the people to a better way of living, supposedly in theory. It was also used as a control mechanism. Now, for that idealist viewpoint, it was meant to be a positive control mechanism to stop people, you know, getting sick, stop them murdering each other, you know, abducting each other, because, you know, the church frowned upon it. It's like, you know, that's really not Christianly, is it? If it had been a different belief system where, you know, murder and that was fine, it would be a very different outcome. You know, the government is there. It's kind of like the skeleton with the muscles as well. If you want to look at that metaphor, the theory is that the government is the skeleton and the church was the muscles. It keeps the whole system running, and it's organized. Okay, so it's functionalist, and it gives chance and leeway to a more abstract way of thinking, and the people would progress that way. I don't know if that's a good metaphor. I might lose that one. My brain's addled because of the flu. But the problem with structures like that is when we start putting them in place and giving them such heavy focus. Like if you're looking at English history in particular, we started giving the church way too much leeway into the politics of running the country, and so they got a little bit arrogant, I would say, and they started controlling the people by saying, "Ooh, do this or this," and people believed it because they thought that their everlasting soul was at risk if they didn't do what they wanted them to do. Now the problem with that is it's not ethical from a belief system viewpoint, because, you know, the divine's not going to attack its own people. It's not going to want that arrogance in the situation where, you know, it's a do what you're told. Or I don't know if you've seen the movie Dogma. That's blasphemous. No, it's hilarious. You should look at things critically like that. You should look at it from every angle. Don't just take things at face value because someone says this is it. But there's a question there, that's a scenario that's raised there between two angels. One of them's Matt Damon, the other's Ben Affleck. But he poses a situation where he puts God as like I believe in a God and a goddess. But he puts God, the male one, which is only seemingly recognized in a patriarchal society, as a vengeful one, where even though we've got that human error part of our makeup, humans get punished for traits and behaviors which are part of their design, which are deemed inappropriate socially by the church. If you don't do what we say, God will punish you, etc. Bearing in mind, God designed you with error in mind. So he is a forgiving God. He doesn't mind that you fucked up, as long as you fix it. And the universe is the same. She doesn't mind how you get there, as long as you do it ethically. So get there, get it done, and get it ethically. Do it your way, baby. She doesn't care. She's like, I just want the job done. God's like, I want the job done. Make sure you don't fuck it up. Keep it ethical. Both of them are saying keep it ethical. So for the concept of structural organizations like the church or organized religion just sort of is a means to control through a particular set of abstract norms which are deemed appropriate at the time. They become outdated sometimes. Traditions change. And so we reaffirm what we should be doing, reanalyze and stuff like that. So control, even in a healthy way, should be reanalyzed. Oh my God, my stutter. I'm dying here. I got a headache and a stutter. I never get headaches. That's a healthy way of looking at control. To be able to reanalyze and cross-analyze. Did I get that one right? Yes. What we're being presented as something that we should be wanting to participate in. We should be able to do that. We should have the right to be able to do that. Consent is always considered as part of divine gift. Conscious thought, your conscience, consent, all these basic human divine gifts which are assigned each person. So you should be allowed to question your position in society, in the community, as a divine right. That basic human right as well. If you look at the Geneva Conventions, that's on a political scale. So if anyone's trying to control you, you should be questioning, as an autonomous adult, whether you're supposed to be participating in this way. You should be weighing up factors of, is this worth this? Is it going to be derogative to my future endeavors, to my health, to my mental health? And I'm not saying, when Americans arc up and say your freedoms are impeding on my freedoms and that shit, but I'm more important, so we should follow my freedoms. That's control. That's ego controlling you. I'm saying that you should want to participate in certain aspects of society in order to benefit. But with that taking, it's not just taking, you should give back as well. It should be back and forth with responsibility. What is it? With privilege comes responsibility. The privilege is to exist in a society, but the responsibility is to ensure that your actions don't fuck up someone else. That's it in a summary. That's it in a nutshell. If you choose to exist in that. The system itself should be ethically presented. It shouldn't be a component-based thing where, one faction is benefiting but the others aren't. It should be a uniform, beneficial, safe structure. When there is an aspect which exploits another part of the culture or the social circle, social structure, that's when it becomes problematic. And that's when you get things like social uprising and conflict theory, which are fun to look at. Not to participate in, but fun to look at. You get your French revolutions and things like that. which are very complicated, and you hope you're on the winning side, and but realistically, who knows at the end, because things change so much. That's the danger of being a participant in a situation which you can't control. That's when we had, like, I think it was the Reformation or something like that. You know, in the English history, when they went from like Catholics to Protestants to Catholics to Protestants to Catholics to Protestants, depending on who was in power at the time. That was the tricky bit, is like wanting to belong in that country at that time. People found that their belief systems kept flickering between the two in order to survive. Which is why I laugh my arse off when you get people who are dogmatic about their beliefs and saying this is the only way. It's like, put into a situation like that, your conviction comes into question. You may just give lip service to, yeah, sure, I believe these things. But the reality is, you probably don't. In that, it's forgivable, I think, because you're trying to survive. It's not. I don't think, you know, if you're going on a patriarchy-based male god viewpoint, that he would honestly give a fuck, because he can see inside you. Whether you say you are Catholic or Protestant at the time, I think he would have looked at you and you go, well, I'm more concerned that you're surviving this situation despite these people being nasty to you, so I'm going to give you a little bit of leeway there. You can be either. What do you believe? I don't care what you're saying. So he'll look at your insides and your actions, and he'll judge you that way. That was my view at the time. I could have been wrong. I don't mind. People hold on to the concept of verbal conviction, when realistically it's an internal abstract concept and feeling. Which is, it's an interesting, again, another melting pot, the inside of a person's psyche. It's a very interesting bubbling cauldron. Let's scare some Catholics and talk about witchery. Why are you afraid of it? It's weird. If you don't believe in it, then it's not going to have an effect, is it? Witches are evil. Why do you care? You don't believe in it. It was a very weird time here in the 1600s, I can tell you. Realistically, you're just burning us because we're female and we speak up, isn't it? I think one of the best units I ever did was, at my uni they had a unit which was part of the history unit, because I loved history. I signed up to the uni for fun. I signed up to the history units for fun. They did witchcraft and witch burnings, and it was all about how the male society at the time didn't actually really follow the concept of witch burnings as a sense of belief system. They burnt the women because they spoke up. And that could be any social group. That was just the women at the time. But any minority or any person that's an opposing viewpoint to what's currently wanting to be dominant at the time. It could be anyone. But they burnt them at the time because it wasn't conducive to what they wanted to control the situation as. And it was fascinating. You can take that scenario of women. It's usually either really old women or young women. Young women who didn't want to marry into situations and they were kind of forced into it, but they rebelled. Or it was old women that were past putting up with men's shit. And they just said what they wanted and did what they wanted. It's like, fuck you guys. It was the middle-aged women that got burnt the least. You know, the childbearing ones that had to put up with the shit, but they weren't willing to leave. I noticed the demographics in those scenarios in the studies, and I'm thinking, it's reflective of the situation today, isn't it? So some things never change. That was interesting. But the men at the time had the vehicle of burnings, drowning, poisoning, torture, in order to get these women to comply to their situation that they wanted them to be in, which was dumb, quiet, and undereducated at the point. Not rebelling against anything that the men wanted to put forward, whether it was harmful to them or not. The uni just poised it on the witch side of things. I mean, it wasn't actually doing magic and witch stuff, which was a little bit annoying at the time, because this was pre-Harry Potter. I'm sitting there going, ooh, we're going to learn about interesting stuff. But it was based on the social factors in it. These days, men oppress through all kinds of things, but they're not allowed to burn or drown or poison us, although they do attack us with weapons and stuff like that. So, you know, some things don't change. Some things should change, but they refuse to acknowledge it. I question whether the idea of attacking women in that time period was faced with the same kind of mentality that men have these days in, it's not my business, I'll keep to myself, so I'll allow it to happen. I do question that's still available as a mindset to, vindicate or validate why they haven't bothered to protect other women. It's not my property, I don't have to look after it. It's like, we're property? Fuck you! So that was an interesting, snippet to a trend that's a behavioral thing that needs to be addressed. Couldn't you just see us as human beings that we need help? If it was a smaller guy getting attacked, murdered, and raped, wouldn't you want to look after him because he's one of your bros? But you see it's a woman, it's like, that's not my woman. What the fuck is wrong with you? I question how the fuck we've lasted as a species this long with mindsets like that. I do. Oh, hello. Where's that coming from? I can hear you. Oh, it's the fire people. Awesome. We're not. It's such a weird question as well, because it's. I've been watching the bear versus man metaphors, the comparison. I love them. I've pissed myself with the memes. I have. And the male equivalent is men have to tell their feelings to a tree or to a girl. And I'm sitting there thinking, the consequences from these two scenarios are somewhat different. If we get stuck with a man, we get attacked, raped, and murdered. If you get stuck with a girl, you have to speak. So do you see the problem here? What's the worst that could happen? Someone might hear you say something. We bleed. It's like, do you not see the extremities here? A bear will never rape you. I've never seen any paperwork indicating that a bear has ever raped a woman. Or, it's just the scenario is quite out of the question. And then you get the other guys which are still angry about it. It's like, well, it's a bear, it will kill you. I'm going, so will a man. But the bear won't rape us before he kills us and eats our organs. No, wait, hang on, that's someone else. That's Dharma. Right, anyway. We're not doing that. I love that argument. Whereas the worst that can happen to a man by talking to a tree or talking about his feelings is that someone hears him. And what would you get back? A verbal retort. Oh no! A verbal retort. Someone's hurt my feelings. Someone's literally removed my organs as a woman. Do you not remember Jack the Ripper? It's like our priorities are somewhat different. The results are somewhat biased in favor of you surviving and us not. These two scenarios. What the fuck? You guys seriously have no fucking idea what goes on in the female mind, do you? Oh, it's hilarious. It's like they've just got no grasp because they've never been really put in that situation as a social group where they have to risk their safety constantly and to be perceived as. I mean, you could argue that you got those short kings, which have got the same scenario because they're quite small. Short kings, guys that are under 6'5", and so they develop little man syndrome where they're pissed off all the fucking time because everybody's picking on us. That is the closest equivalent we've got in their sex for a woman. And I'm not saying that you are a woman, I'm saying that you get picked on a lot, right? You don't like it, right? You get pissed off. You feel unsafe maybe, subconsciously, consciously. We feel that way all the fucking time. We feel, and as a collective, because biologically speaking, we are smaller. We can't put on a lot of muscle. We can't, we have to divide our sports up into two groups because we can't actively and equally participate because we just don't have the biological structures to be able to achieve the same outcome. We've come to terms with that, and we're asking you to help us. Be a man, help us, protect us. And they still argue that it's like, well, you can get murdered by a bear. It's like, it's a fascinating argument. And an example where, as a mass collective, and this is very much generalizing and stereotypes, guys still don't get it. It's like, why are women angry all the time? Because we got small man syndrome, except we got innies instead of outies. We get picked on all the fucking time, and we're not playing the victim because we're not allowed to voice our problems, because otherwise we're nagging or moaning, or we're hormonal. So, fuck off, guy. The worst a short king can get is always just short and insecure. It's like, we are literally dragged on for having a biological function. It's your hormones. No, we are horribly treated. You just don't want to get it. You don't want to acknowledge it because it's inconvenient truth for you, and you don't want to be pegged as one of those guys who's doing it, but at the same time, you won't stop the guys that do, because you stand by and you say this is okay because it's not me and I don't judge and all this shit. And you're like, you should fucking judge, because what that fucker's doing is reflecting on you as a fucking sex. See the correlation, or are you just choosing not to, you know? It's like, fuck's sake, dude. Come get your guy. He's raping people. Or he's being horrible in general. And it fucks it up for the other guys around them. It does. Because no girl is going to want to touch a guy in general. Even the hot ones. If you're presenting as one of those kind of guys. And you're willing to tolerate those kind of guys. That's the fucking thing as well. It's because you're buddies with a guy. Your buddy's an asshole, but you're willing to associate with him? So that makes you the fucking asshole. Why should we hang out with you if he's like that and you're okay with that? It just doesn't make sense. It's a safety issue as well. It's like we've been built in with a possibly even a socially conditioned situation. It might be an abstract conditioned situation where we need to live in fear, and it goes across sex. It goes into race. I say race, ethnicity as well. There's a fear in that particular idea of certain minorities that they need to live in fear. Yes, we acknowledge that, but you're not seeing how it could be. It's already there. Hello, what are you doing? You good? You good? You want to know something funny? I just got pulled over for having dangly things in my rear view. Oh my god, I'm sitting there freaking out. I've never got pulled over for nothing, mate. Dead bodies in the trunk and nothing. You didn't see nothing. I'm in my old neighborhood and the cops just pulled me over because I got pulled over for having shit, essentially. This shit hanging from my rear view. Is it profiling? Who can say? We all get pulled over. Stop it. What a weird thing to get pulled over for. I thought my tail light was out or something. Weird. I will look into that more. Apparently we're not supposed to have anything hanging there. I'm like, okay, whatever. But, you know, I'm going to have to wrap it up soon. This is obviously going to be tacked on. Why are you walking in the road? Idiots. I didn't get fined, but I got warned. I'm like, is that even a thing? Weird. I'll find another way to decorate my dashboard. You can't stop, man. Fuck po-po. I will decorate with my feathers and shit. I'll find another way to rebel. You can't make me. But I find that funny. No, they're in hindsight. See, that kind of control I don't mind. Oh shit me, people. I don't mind. Because it's justified. It's not going to infringe on my freedoms in any way. It's some decoration. It doesn't matter. It's not going to stop me earning. I might need to straighten that up, actually. It's not going to get in the way. It doesn't tell me who I am. Not a problem. Don't care. If they'd come to my work and said, you can't earn because you're this, then I'd start questioning that method of control. I'd be like, this doesn't feel right. I'm not doing this. You can't do that. But yeah, no, control is such an interesting idea. And this is two parts now because I actually had to stop while I'm sitting there going, I can still see me in the phone. Can you see what I'm doing with my podcast? I'm like, but that was interesting. What an interesting ad to the day. I'm excited by that. I got to talk to police people. My privilege. What? I'm not going into that discussion. That is a real discussion though we should have. I agree with that one though. You got some valid points there, guys. If you know what I'm talking about with that, with white people getting pulled over and stuff, they got some valid points there. I would like to have that discussion, but I don't know if I'm qualified to have that discussion. So I might leave that one. I don't know. But, you know, the system of control, it's like some of it's valid. Some of it is no harm control. It's like it has no real repercussions, like me having to take down this shit hanging from my rear view. It's like, it's so pretty though. Look, I got all my pretty things. How can you tell I got autism? I collect things. I collect the fuck out of things. Anyway. But, you know, it's, that hurts no one. I don't mind taking that down. It's nothing. So you got to question what you're doing that's in a situation where you are either being controlled in a negative way, where it's not conducive to your life, lifestyle choices, or life chances in particularly. If you find that you're in a situation where you're being oppressed in order to stop you growing from any kind of situation, or stop the transition between layers in society, for example. If you're believing in a class system. Some people feel comfortable using the class system. I think it's an abstract concept that's had its moments, but it shouldn't really exist because it's a transitional thing now. I feel it's more of an array of people holding money and holding power and cronyism and narcissism. So it's like the class system is more reflective of that than any kind of you know, getting into back rooms and things like that. I think there's more to it than we're being led on, and I think that's how they want it. If they don't know the backroom shit, they don't need to know anything else because they're just not got the access key. I will look into that one more. But you know, it's just question where you are. Are you happy with what you are and where you're going? After all, control is only a concept that is available when, you know, you've given consent to it. I know I use the analogy of the chessboard. It's like the game of chess only exists so much as the board exists. There might be prominent players, kings, queens, bishops, but without the board, it's just not there. And the board, you could say, is the consent of the people. Without the consent of the people, these people who are supposedly kings and queens just don't factor in. There's nothing to play on. There's no ground to use to you know, apply their machinations. Son of a bitch. We the proletariat? No. I've got Wolfie Smith in my head now. Urban Gorilla. If anyone's that old and knows Citizen Smith. That's a good series. It's from the 70s, but it's Wolfie Smith. And he's constantly making up like I think he's trying to promote some kind of communism thing, but it's in like England in suburban area, and it's just so misapplied. But it's hilarious in how it's misapplied because it has no effect. If you want to see any kind of ideological political change, you have to go right into the government to do it. Even protesting has its limits. People look at you like you're crazy. It's like, why are you know, that's what I don't understand. It's like, we want to make change. It's like, yes, we're drawing attention to things. Yes, okay, I see that. The protests aren't as effective as getting into government yourself and changing the policies. Go deeper. Stop standing in fields and throwing things at people and potentially leading on riots. It's time to get involved properly in the structure and change the structure from inside. It's right now standing in the rain, in the pissing rain, in a field, holding a sign or laying across roads and stopping traffic. We're stopping traffic because we're, you know, interfering with stuff, and it will make them think if we keep interfering with stuff. No, you need to go into politics and get the shit done yourself. Obviously, the people in politics aren't doing it. You need to train yourself up, go and do it yourself. It's take it on a bigger scale, skill up. Yeah, I don't know why because it just makes you look silly. I mean, I agree with passive protest, but at the same time, that's so much as you bring awareness to it. If everybody's already aware and they're still not doing it, then you go and go get your degree and actually change it. Otherwise, we're all just sitting in the field complaining. It doesn't make an effect. So if you're not happy with control in that regard, you might need to rethink the aspects of which you've contributed to the situation. I'll tell you what, if you're sitting there creating riots and through protests, not all protests lead to riots, but some protests lead to riot. The concept of protests in themselves are then tainted by these assholes that riot. So you're going to have more control placed on you with regards to how you protest. Regardless of whether you rail against it and say, these are our rights. You're going to get the government, for example, which you already are seemingly teamed against, which really you should be infiltrating. You're just like, we hate the government. And the government's like, hey, we exist to help you. So people are like, no, we don't like it. This is a weird analogy. I'm a teacher. I know this is official. Listen to me, I'm smart. But if you're conflicting, and it's always this, is protesters, government, where's it going? What you need to do is infiltrate, take over. How many spy movies have we seen where you need to infiltrate the government, get in, double tap them and come out again? You know, change the system from within. Kind of like a T cell. Is it a T cell, like in your immune system? Where it's a sickness, you go inside, you heal it, and then you eat it or something? I don't know. There's a good analogy there. I got a headache. I'm going into class. Okay. If you're not happy with control, consider how your actions are contributing to the problem. That's what I'm saying. You can change it if you want to, but you have to put the appropriate steps in. Standing in a field and bitching is not going to fix the problem. Violence is not going to fix the problem. Using their rules to elicit change is mostly probably the more ethical way of doing things. Because, you know, people don't really get hurt. People don't get their house torched. People, you know, you don't get the flu by getting wet in the field. It just seems a more peaceful approach to it. And it might be a bit of a struggle, yes, but with policy comes change. But the thing is, people want the instant gratification now. And they assume that standing in a field and disrupting traffic and eliciting riots is going to do it. And it doesn't. It brings awareness to the problem. Yes, we know. Now what? It's like, well, we're going to keep shouting until it changes. It's like, they don't care. They've got other shit to do. They're looking at a multitude of other fucking policies and shit they have to deal with. You standing in a field, they can just white noise out. They don't care. I mean, if you watched Fight Club, it's an interesting movie and it's an interesting idea, but it's the raw bare bones of it. And some crazy person will take that up and say, you know what? They're not listening to the protest. We need to go and do some other way of doing it. It's usually a violent riot kind of way, which is stupid. Because it undermines the entire, you know, the premise of what you're standing for. You need to go inside, infiltrate the system in an ethical way, not in a case of I'm going to go and disrupt shit and, what is it, like spying and espionage and shit like that. I need you to go inside, learn how to be part of the government, and shape it for what you need it to be, what you want it to be. That's the more ethical way of doing it. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. But, you know, it's the better way of doing it. It's a more peaceful way of doing it. It's gradual change, not immediate disruption and breaking shit to the point where all we've got is rubble. It doesn't make sense to do it that way. You need to find a softer way of doing things. And it sucks and it's boring, yes, because any other learning usually is boring unless you've got an intense interest in it. But it's gradual, healthy change. It's not a case of I'm going to shoot down the plane because I don't like it flying. You still got the airport, dickhead. You know, it doesn't make sense. It's just strange. Yeah, anyway. It's a weird metaphor. Where did that one come from? I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys have a fantastic Thursday. Be nice. Okay, don't go rough and ready and just punch people because you're annoyed and you feel control. Look at what you're participating in. Question what your part in this show is. We're all actors on this stage. What part are you willing to play in this? Is it a positive one? Is it, you know, allowing shit to happen because, you know, I can't be bothered acting up against it, you know, and I know it's wrong, but I can't be bothered. I mean, and in question, why do you think it's wrong? What are you getting out of it? Everyone's got to get something out of it. I hope you have a fantastic Thursday. I've got to leave it there because I'm rambling. And take it easy. And hopefully I don't get pulled up by the police again. Oh, we are so in my old neighborhood. Hopefully I don't get pulled up by the police again. On the way home, hopefully. It's Thursday. I just want to go home and eat. Take it easy.